Hi, Joe Wimberg, Bluebird Semaphore, which of course this is not going to anytime soon be uploaded to that YouTube site, Bluebird Semaphore. But like I said, the previous taping, World History 1B, that I'm going to continue to make these files, and we'll see what happens with any postings in the future. So, World History for Ordinary People 2B. And we're going to continue with the Maine. I do have the name of the book that I'm relying on. It's A Ship to Remember, and it's by the author's name is Michael Blow. As I said previously, one of his relatives was on the Maine. Was a lieutenant or an officer on the Maine when it blew up. He did live through that experience, and he was part of getting the information to come to light as to what went on when that battleship, although there's debate if the Maine was a heavy cruiser or a light battleship. I'm just going to go with battleship. And so since talking to you last, what I think I found out to add to the story is that the background for a lot of what was going on in Cuba was I'm going to say the eastern 1/3 of the island was pretty much in revolution, and I can't say for sure yet it was the whole island. Had these insurgents who were trying to get themselves free of the Cuban shackles. There were insurgents. They were fighting, and the military and political representatives ruling the country, representatives of Spain's governors and generals and such that were assigned to Cuba, they had come up with an idea where they took the people off the farms, off wherever they were in this eastern 1/3 of the island, and I want to say that third is referred to as Santiago, and they put them in walled cities that were referred to with a Spanish term reconcentrados. In other words, they were reconcentrating the people in these walled towns. And these people had a very, very bad time of it. 200,000 died from either the action of the Cuban military types who were imprisoning them, garrisoning them, or starvation, disease, famine, whatever, that's starvation and disease. 200,000. And that's part of what was inciting some of the people trying to advocate war with Spain. They thought this was intolerable, and there were efforts going on from within the United States, people going there, the Red Cross sending help and aid for these people, but it was very little to the overall devastation that was going on there. 200,000 dead. Now, Cuba, the overall population is 30 million. So if you try to compare that with some of the other disasters like this, where they are doing a type of genocide, you're talking about areas where the numbers of people maybe add up to 1 billion or more. And the numbers that were subject to genocide, were in the millions, single-digit millions. So it strikes me as being the thing going on in Cuba as being somewhat, as devastating and as terrible as what was going on in Europe between the wars and during World War II. Anyway, it's people, were split on this. Some wanted to do it. Some thought, we should not interfere with the sovereignty of another nation. Be that as it may, for the most part, people tended to look the other way. And I'm reading that even those who wanted to do things wanted to do it for the wrong reasons. In other words, just war for the sake of war, and I'm reluctant to say that they wanted to take over Cuba, which they didn't. I'm reluctant to say that they had their eyes on the Philippines, which they did, and this sort of thing. But the point is, there were people that were championing, intervening, but not necessarily for humanitarian reasons, although they would use that as a way to nudge people in the direction they wanted to go. Some people just like war. It's what fuels them. So we had a bunch of these types. Now, as I'm reading through this, I'm becoming, I'm getting a good appreciation of McKinley, the president at the time. He had an extremely difficult task, yet I see him making decisions that make sense. I see him not caving in to the people pushing for war, and I see him, when it comes to that it has to be, he makes extremely good case for it, and he puts it in a way that would seem tolerable to the rest of the civilized, quote-unquote, world, that what they were doing was not aggressive for aggression's sake. They were doing it because basically their hands were tied. Spain was not going to do anything. Spain was going to let this thing continue. And it had to be addressed. And McKinley, like I say, to his credit, he worked out ways to make this happen. So, and with a lot of terrible people in the press and in the Congress, the Senate, they're just all countering what he was trying to do, particularly the press. The press was extremely horrid in the beginning days of the Spanish War and what went on in Cuba. So that is part of this. What I'd also like to say is that after the Maine was blown up, little time passed, and the U.S. government had the Navy, the Secretary of the Navy, and Secretary of State, whatever, get all behind it, and they put together a court of inquiry. I think it was certainly within 2 weeks of the incident. They put this court of inquiry in motion, basically for naval people. And they did their job spectacularly. The same thing happening today would take months, years, put these people together. There would be no, cooperation. Everybody would be looking to get political fodder, and see how they can get more votes the next election, and so on, make themselves look good, make the other people look bad. There was none of that. There was absolute secrecy, yet even under that, certain things did leak out. But they conducted it absolute secrecy. They did it, the very best job that you could imagine. And the verdict was of their court of inquiry was that the ship was mined. And everything I read that supports it is believable. And my opinion is that the Maine was blown up. That's my opinion. After reading this book, and I got to give the author a lot of credit. He does the details, but he doesn't make it. He doesn't make it dreary. There's detail after detail and so on. But it's very readable. Anybody interested in the Maine battleship, the Maine, and it being blown up, you should get that book by Michael Blow, A Ship to Remember. And by the way, the cover, and I didn't bring it down because I wanted to show it to you. The cover of the jacket, on the jacket of the book, is so strikingly similar to a painting that I made. I'm sure I made it 3 years ago, or maybe more. But not, I don't think more than 5 years ago. So I say like 3 years ago, and it's a representation of Lord Nelson's ship, Victory, during the war in Trafalgar, where he lost his life, but his strategy became super famous. That was in the 1805 time frame. Way before this, but very famous. And one of the things I got to dig out, they keep mentioning that the Spanish ships and their sailors hadn't been trained since Trafalgar. Now, that's a long time, 1805. So maybe there was another incident. And not only that, I always thought that the fighting between the British under Lord Nelson was against the French. Now, it could be, and I'm suspecting that it's correct. It was really a joint venture, France and Spain, trying to beat up on England. But when you go against Lord Nelson in the arena of naval warfare and battles, you're not going to win. This guy was the genius of genius when it came to naval warfare. And it's just tremendous. If you haven't, you ought to read something of Lord Nelson and his exploits. And they were quite scattered around the globe, off the islands, off Western Bulge in Africa, in the Caribbean, and then in the waters in and around Spain and France and so on. I would say a pretty long career, maybe 20 years or so, or 30 years, but he sacrificed his life. Now we're getting way off topic here. Back to the Maine and the inquiry. The inquiry was done quite efficiently, maybe 15 days, I don't know, but all the bases were touched, and then under yet more secrecy, the people sitting on that court of inquiry got themselves up to Washington and gave their reports verbally. A great deal of secrecy was ensured in getting that document up to Washington. They actually had a lieutenant with sidearm come and get that document, put it in a canvas envelope, and he was with that document the entire trip up, meaning, if you're going to get this document from us, you're going to have to kill the lieutenant. Well, it didn't happen. The document got up there. But yet the somehow contents leaked, and the press actually got it before McKinley was able to deliver it to the Congress. That stuff is still going on. People just can't live by the rules. You know, we say we're a civilization, we're a country of laws. No, they don't live by the rules. Everybody does what they want to do. It's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, if we actually live by the rules, I think this could be a much better society, a much better place to live. But we don't. Everybody, and I see this in daily life, at the very common level, the ordinary people, and on the way up, all the way up. They do what they want to do. Okay, go do this. And they say yes, and then they do what they want to do. Freedom. That's what they got. They got freedom. Freedom to do whatever they want, everybody. And what we get is chaos, and we get the undesired results. I'm preaching. I don't want to preach. I want to talk about world history. So, and I'm getting anxious to transfer out of the Maine part of the Spanish-American War. We're going to get into the Philippines. I'm anxious to see that. And, of course, that opens the door to a whole set of other tragedies, including at the beginning of World War II, when the Japanese came in and massacred the Philippines and our soldiers. A long march to Bataan, and General MacArthur leaving off of Corregidor and saying, "I will return." By the way, that's the next guy I'm going to jump into is MacArthur. And once again, it's one of my favorite history authors. I think it's Michael Manchester. I'm thinking on this, and I think the name of the book is American Caesar. I've already read, a good deal on MacArthur, and there's good and bad in that guy. So we'll see what I get out of this concentrated biography on Douglas. Once again, it's with World War II, which is my primary interest in doing any sort of look into history, and that probably is because of my involvement in the Navy during during the Vietnam War. When you're over there all the time, you start to take notice. And by the way, one of the things that was making people, politicians, military, and what have you, hesitant to jump into Cuba was that their next door neighbor to the east is Haiti, and that was a great big mess. And what they didn't want to jump into something that was going to turn out to be another Haiti. So there was a certain amount of just a desire not to let that same thing happen because of what happened in Haiti. And Haiti, as you know, is like the most impoverished nation in the Caribbean, all over that area, and probably one of the most impoverished nations on the planet. It had one time been in a vegetation, a beautiful island, and in came the people who mine beautiful places, and they turned it into a big mud pile. They destroyed that beautiful place and put the people into poverty. And Cuba is also a very beautiful island with wonderful vegetation and its type of landscape and geography. Fairly high hills and small mountains down to the water, rainforest, beaches and bays, and all this type of good stuff. I can only hope that it hasn't been demolished, like, say, in Haiti. I can only hope. I don't think it has been, but and it probably isn't. But who knows? I mean, we don't get too much reporting from inside Cuba although in theory it's opened up a little bit recently. And so a ship to remember. Michael Blow, the Maine, USS Maine disaster, Spanish-American War, and all that went on with that. And it's funny who people who were trying to enlist and get on the bandwagon when it looked likely that we were going to have a military action in Cuba. People like Wild Bill Hitchcock. I think one of the well-known Indian leaders got involved. You know, well, these were all people who were volunteering in service. Wild Bill Hitchcock, and I want to say Butch Cassidy, but I'm not sure about that. And you know, it was in the character of the American people to solve problems with violence. Now, they would go for long periods of time, nice and quiet, everybody trying to get along, and then something like this would come up, and there goes the violence would come out. So many a Civil War general, many a Civil War soldier was ready to get back into the saddle and do what they had to do. Whatever they had to do what they do. So I'm going on and on here, and I have no fear because I don't have to post these things. So I can put them up. I can talk as long as I want. And I'm hoping that some people will eventually get to listen to this stuff. If not, I at least know I have a documented place where this information is being stored gradually. As I talk about what I learned, what I cull from world history. And as a sideline to this, as you know, I paint, I try to play the piano, I write, and all of that adds to an interesting way of living. Interesting. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, you can't be all over the place. You got to concentrate." Well, I heard that story 40, 50 years ago. I paid no attention to it, and I haven't excelled in any of these, but I've rewarded myself on these. You know, like here, for example, is the latest printout of what I guess I don't see them using the term much, but the latest novella. Okay. Right there, you see that? It's one of my latest. So we do this kind of stuff, and we enjoy it. I enjoy the piano playing. I enjoy the writing, the reading. Terrific, and talking like this is terrific. I do have a few friends who I can talk like this with both of us, the friend and myself, having some sort of comprehension. Most people that I bring any of these topics up with, they don't know what I'm talking about, and it's getting to be more and more common. Just they just don't know anything. The people, and even the so-called people going through better colleges and getting higher ed degrees and education. But the bottom line is they know nothing. What are you going to do? It doesn't matter, because when you're being herded as populations are, you don't need to know anything. You just need to know which direction to walk and how to set your pace. And that's it. You don't need to know anything. Nothing. Where's your next meal ticket? That's all you need to know. I am going to say bye-bye. It was nice talking to you today, and I'll get a chance to talk again. I don't know if it'll be right away, but I'm under no pressure, which is wonderful. I should do a painting, but I'm under no pressure. I'll do it when I get around to it. The only thing I feel pressure with is the piano. I got to sit down in the morning and play the piano. That you have to do. Otherwise, it's just never going to work. Not that it will ever work for me, but that I have to do. The reading, of course, I do every day. Every day, every day, every day. Listen, folks, if you're listening, thanks for listening. Bye.